Hey YouTube! Some of you guys might remember my very first Valen video way back on May 1st was filmed when I was still in St. John's, which is where I go to school. And I was up at the top of, it's called Signal Hill, which is like, there's really nice, like, it's part of Parks Canada, really nice like overview area. We can see like the ocean and the St. John's Harbor. And I was up there with my mom. And you guys saw the video that I made while I was up there. What you guys didn't see was that while we were up there, there were two guys from CBC News who were up there doing some filming, because that day there was some story about financial cuts being made within Parks Canada, and they were having to lay people off like all over the country for Parks Canada. And anyway, these two reporters were up there and they wanted to interview some people about how, like, about this news, because it was like breaking news that night. They wanted to interview some people. So my mom and I are just up there like looking at the ocean and just being us, and these two guys come over to us and they're like, oh hey, we're with CBC Canada, and they tell us this whole story about Parks Canada, and they were like, can we interview you? And we were like, okay. And so they started asking us questions like where we're from, and my mom says that like she's just on vacation in St. John's. Then I was like, well, I go to school here. I'm not from here, but I go to school here and I live here kind of like throughout the school year. So they were like, okay, well, we'll interview you. And I was like, ah. And then I was like, well, what are you gonna ask me? And he was like, well, we'll probably ask you like this or this. And like, it wasn't live or anything, but still. And I was kind of like, I looked at my mom and I was like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't really know that much about Parks Canada. And I was like, I don't want to sound like an idiot. And she was like, well, you should say this and you should say this. And like, she was telling me what to say. So the interviewers kind of like looked between us, and then they were like, they looked at my mom, they're like, maybe we'll just interview you. And I was like, yes, please. Because I was like, I don't really know what to say and I don't want to like come off sounding like an idiot. So they interviewed my mom like maybe 2-3 minutes max. They talked to her and they asked her these questions about Parks Canada, whatever. And then after they were done, we were asking them about it. We were like, so like, is this gonna air? And they were like, well, it's the leading story on like the local news, and then it'll be on like the national news later. Like this whole Parks Canada thing is the leading story. So they were like, they're interviewing people, I guess, everywhere that they can in like all over the country pretty much. So they were like, you might your piece might be on the news, it might not. Like, we can't really tell you, that's not our call, but like, just so you know, it might be. And my mom kind of looked at me, she was like, there's no way mine will be on. I was like, I don't know. So we go back to our bed and breakfast where we were staying, and 6 o'clock rolls around, so we turn on the local news, like the St. John's news, and what do you know? My mom is on the local news. Here's a clip of that.
55 people who work for Parks Canada in this province got notices today. Their union says 7 of those people work at the Signal Hill National Historic Park, and at one position will be lost. According to Parks Canada, Signal Hill National Historic Park is the most visited historic site in the province, with nearly 1 million visitors a year. We talked to visitors there today. Here's how some of them reacted to the news. Well, I think that's really
look who it is!
Obviously,
look at that, CBC News.
The place, and then they're here to give out information both to the tourists visiting,
spelled your name right,
the general public, that makes this an adventure to come here, and I think it could have a negative impact.
What's your
look, it was on CBC News!
Oh man, I can't believe I was actually on the news. I was on CBC News.
Oh, you've really made it now.
Man, I'm famous.
So she just thinks this is hilarious. And like, we don't know anyone in St. John's. Like, all my friends live there, but none of us have cable, none of us watch the news. So we're like, there's no way anyone saw this, whatever. So then my mom was like, well, if it's on the national, I want people to. So she like texts her sister, like my aunt, her best friend, 2 of her best friends, all of who have like TiVo or whatever. She was like, I was interviewed, I might be on CBC National News, can you record it? And they were all like, oh, okay. So then they all know that she's gonna be on. So like, we're waiting and waiting, and finally the national news comes out. There's a hockey game that's like going into overtime, so the national news is being like pushed back, and we were like, when is it gonna happen? So then we're like sitting there watching, and my mom's like, there's no way I'm gonna be on, there's no way I'm gonna be on. She was like, I told all these people, I know there's no way I'm gonna be on. And what do you know, she was on. So here's a clip of that.
Signal Hill is a national historic site, and for Canadians, a source of
Beautiful.
You were on the national news! So I guess the moral of this story is, if a guy from CBC News asks to interview you about anything, you say yes, because you might be on the national news, like my mom. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.